Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Salesforce Ben webinar. This time we're joined by AvePoint and we'll be reflecting on Dreamforce. But of course, before we dive in, do let us know in the comments if you attended Dreamforce in person this year or if you tuned in virtually. So as I'm sure many of you will know, there were some groundbreaking announcements at Dreamforce this year. So whether you were able to attend or missed out on some of the sessions, today's session is your chance to catch up and discuss some of the highlights. The spotlight of Dreamforce 2024 was, of course, on artificial intelligence and its growing influence on the Salesforce ecosystem. But we'll also be exploring other critical topics such as data governance, security, and backup solutions as well. Joining us today is Shyam Oza from AvePoint, who will help us sift through all the key takeaways from this year's Dreamforce, with a special focus on AI's tangible impact on real customers. From new tools to emerging trends, we'll cut through the noise and get to the actionable insights that can help you power your business and customer success for 2025 and beyond. So without further ado, I will hand over to Shyam.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Simon. So good to be here with the Salesforce Ben and Salesforce Trailblazer community, and those of you on LinkedIn Live. We had a pretty spectacular Dreamforce. It was our debut as a sponsor at Dreamforce, and we learned a lot. And so we were hoping to share some of those insights with you as a senior product marketing manager at AvePoint. My job is to listen to customer stories, understand what's happening in the field, take that back to the organization. And then when we create solutions that are meant to delight you, tell those stories to other folks so that they can benefit from all of these great lessons learned, this technology, thought leadership, and we can all be successful together. So I figured, why not tell a little story about what you might have missed, what we thought about our journey, and kind of what our lessons learned. And if you were there, we can compare notes. If you weren't there, hopefully this gives you a brief insight into what happens and maybe helps you build your justification for going in 2025. So this is going to be a very, very simple session. We'll start with what it was like on the show floor. So we were there. We had a lot of fun. If you weren't there, the campground is a massive auditorium experience with tons of sponsors, all kinds of fun activities. Some of the booths had F1 simulators. We brought a margarita station for one of the nights. There were even these really cool little Agentforce bots that were running around. And at first I thought maybe they're just there for fun. But one of them suddenly popped open and handed me a Time magazine, which was really, really cool. The place was just a constant buzz. It's an experience. If you've never been to one, just to go to one, I think you should definitely try it out. As a sponsor or as an attendee, I think it's just an incredible experience. And we met hundreds and hundreds of customers. We had some great conversations. We, like I said, sponsored the Carasoft party and a bunch of other really fun activities. And if you guys met us at the booth, definitely drop a link or note in the chat. We'd love to catch up with you and get your thoughts on our booth, on our swag, or anything like that. But while we were there, right, there were a couple quick things that we learned, right? The first was we all wanted to go to a lot of the theater sessions and things like that were there. And you just can't. Sometimes there's too many good sessions back to back. Sometimes they're across the conference center from one another, or they just get packed up and there's lines out the door, right? Kind of hard to get first in line for Matthew McConaughey and stuff like that. So all is not lost. If you didn't know, you can go to Salesforce Plus and watch all of the sessions. You just need a basic Salesforce login, Trailblazer account, things like that work just fine. And then you're able to focus on some of these sessions. I'm going to highlight one of them that really taught me a lot in today's call in a little bit. If you don't have a lot of time, if you're jumping around and you only have one place to go in the expo hall, I think in the campground, the industry section was the best bang for the buck. If you're in a specific vertical or industry, head right on over to that booth. If you're an ISV or a partner that works with certain industries, going to those sections is excellent for fact finding, understanding how people are solving challenges, and getting to talk to SEs from Salesforce who are helping customers solve these problems just like yours, which is awesome. If you're afraid of things like theater sessions and getting distracted because of all the noise, the one thing I'll say is there are theater sessions with the headphones. Make the experience easy as a viewer, but also as a vendor. I think this builds significant confidence that people are going to hear your message, people are going to attend your session. There's going to be focus, and the giveaways or the booths or anything like that that are nearby are not going to drown you out or compete for attention. And the last thing I'd say is sign up for 2025 now. They officially confirmed that they're coming back and bringing the show back to San Francisco. But some of the things that we learned in our own troubles, hotel and lodging, very, very expensive if you go last minute. Running out of tickets, travel and everything else. So get in there early, start booking stuff early, get access to hotels early, and start building your business justification, because it's going to be a lot easier to build a business justification with a lower front end cost than trying to convince your boss, a couple quarters from now that you want to go and all the prices are higher up. So I think budget, things like that are something that you should already be thinking about if you're going to Dreamforce next year, or you want to try and go next year and you couldn't go this year. Start making that case now. It's going to be that much harder a couple months from now, on and on. So what were my top takeaways from the show itself, the kind of the eye-opening moments? Well, I'll talk about AI readiness and AI confidence in general. This was from customer conversations that we were having all throughout the show, conversations with SEs. And what we realized were customers were all concerned about the accuracy of insights from AI, the outputs from generative AI. They were in particularly afraid, not necessarily of hallucinations and inaccuracies, which are a problem, but really about like opening up the kimono and accidentally showing people human resources information or sensitive data or intellectual property that they shouldn't. And if that happened, there was this urge to kind of overcorrect, and people started bringing in complicated and rigid rules. These things started to limit the adoption of things like, chatbots and Einstein Copilot and agents and things like that. And many organizations were basically saying they were getting stuck in the pilot phase. They deployed a handful of licenses. They were going through a trial, but something happened in the pilot. Either there was an adoption problem, there was a data quality problem, the use cases weren't well defined, and folks were getting stuck in the pilot phase. And one of the things that we realize is when you actually get to that confidence, organizations are struggling, to identify those productivity boosts in those pilot groups. And so I think what's really important is the pilot groups should be a little bit broad. You should try and see what you can do in every single department and every single team with AI, and certain use cases and things like that pop up. We had an excellent one recently where our product team was using AI to quickly write and publish release notes and saving hours and hours of time. Customer support teams are coming up with ways to work through the fat and get straight to their customers. These things are important, but you have to kind of unleash the creativity with humans at the helm. So people coming up with ideas, people coming up with interesting prompts, people building different kinds of agents in Salesforce, and then trying to solve problems, experimenting, failing fast, and kind of going from there. And what seemed really important was the folks who were measuring all this, what teams are using AI, how many prompts are they using, what types of agents or bots are they using, which features are being used. That allowed them to kind of focus on where to make the investments and move from that pilot phase, kind of to empowering the entire workforce and Salesforce. And one of the ways I think Salesforce is solving these problems is this concept of Agentforce. And I think when LLMs, ChatGPT and all of that kind of initially went out in the wild, it seemed like magic. But then as people started deploying this stuff in their enterprise, they started to find issues. The chat was too generic. It was only getting data from the internet. It didn't understand the user persona. Was it a customer talking to it? Was it a salesperson internally talking to it? Is it a partner asking for support? And what are they trying to do? The data sets that you want access to for scheduling things like calendars and all that definitely shouldn't be touching other sets of data. And so having this concept, I love this concept of Agentforce that allows you to say, here are the roles that this agent is fulfilling. Here are the people that it's supporting. Here's the data that it has access to. And then Salesforce automatically creates boundaries that say, this other data, that's not in scope. Cut that out. Do not include that in the prompt. If people start asking the agents things that they shouldn't, that go against what that role of that agent is, it'll start blocking people and telling them that this is an inappropriate prompt or this is not the appropriate request for information. And I think this really starts to congeal, let's say, what started with like the big AI, revolution and everything that we saw on the internet and everything going viral, to how do we apply this in a business application? And Agentforce really seems to be, looking at the other hyperscalers and things like that, the right approach to doing this. And what I liked at the end, and you should definitely check this out in the demo, is that IT, your admins, your developers, your operations folks can basically create sets of services, and then end users can make requests. And instead of just building whatever agent they want, going wild and doing anything they want, they get to see a set of tasks and capabilities that official admins and IT and stuff sanction, and then build their agents from those approved sets of capabilities and sets of data, which I think is very, very cool. And I'm just checking out really quick. It looks like, all right, Larissa's already ahead of the ball and has already been watching her Salesforce Plus sessions. That's awesome. Yeah, there are a ton out there, and picking the ones you want is the hardest part. Now, we said the word data a lot, but I was talking about agents and all that. And the second big thing was the improvements to Data Cloud. And this brings up something I'll talk about later on, but we really live in this multi-cloud world, right? Yes, we want to consolidate as much as we want. We don't want to have data sitting on legacy file shares. We don't want 6 different types of file sync and share applications. We don't want to be on Salesforce, Microsoft, Google, and Amazon, but we may have to use a combination of these to meet our business requirements, to do the mission or service our customers the way we need to. So while vendor fatigue is a problem and vendor consolidation is something that folks are doing, at the end of the day, they still do end up with a couple different data silos, data lakes, and warehouses. And what I think is really important, kind of Salesforce was acknowledging the gaps with LLM, with Agentforce. They're acknowledging the gaps of decentralized data and data silos with Data Cloud. It's not, hey, let's migrate all of this data in and rip it out of other systems and try and make this Snowflake data work with this RDS data that's sitting, that's looking at Dataverse data in Microsoft, and try to mash all of these together. Let's actually use a platform like Data Cloud, connect to all of those different systems, and then surface it up to the users where they exist. And I think this is what's really important, this interconnectedness. And on the technology level, it might seem pretty straightforward and boring, but I think where it adds value is that the data has to be aggregated from many, many different places for it to have quality. So it can't just be from the web. It can't just be from a few internal systems, but it might include Dataverse. It might include Snowflake, SAP, Oracle, on and on and on. And you merge those things together. But when you merge that data together, you then have to craft experiences, reports, business workflows that are persona and roles based. So, your Salesforce users, the folks that are in the field, might be viewing this data in Tableau, right? But back at headquarters, in senior leadership, you could have office users who want to know what's happening across the business, across multiple different work streams. And maybe they've decided that they want to consolidate all of this stuff into something like Power BI. And what I love about Data Cloud is it's not limited by these needs of a business. It's able to take all of these different systems, share the data across those systems, and allow people to access that data where they work and how they work. And I think this is very, very critical. And a little teaser on our roadmap here is we're actually looking at taking our historical data that we store for data protection and things like that from backup, and also being able to push that out into things like Tableau, Power BI, and other sources where people work. So at the end of the day, though, there was a lot of talk about AI, right? And people were always saying, where's the value? Give me a solid use case. Help me explain this to my boss. And there were quite a few sessions there. This is by no means the only session, but the FedEx session that happened at the beginning of the show, and it is available on Salesforce Plus, I think really helps illustrate how an organization matures and gets ROI and defines ROI from things like AI. So in the FedEx case, the new CEO was talking about when he joined the organization, or when he was a new CEO, that it was very growth oriented. Data was important, but it was really about data about competitors, how to catch up with the industry leaders in shipping and logistics at the time. There was a major shift, though, when the pandemic happened, that digital had to be a big part of their physical infrastructure. And this was very cool and fascinating to me. He gave us a couple examples, and the one that stuck out to me was there was before this incident, there was a $300 million cost because there was a snowstorm in Memphis, and that's where one of their major shipping hubs was. And they were very reactive in the sense that they had data, but there were no warnings, there were no alerts, there were no projections and things like that. Or maybe their data was about packages, addresses, shipping routes, but it didn't contain finer details about climate, supply chain, and all of that. So more and more data started coming in. And the next time that there was a snowstorm, they actually saw that coming and were able to then look at how that would impact their other systems, both digital and physical. And they ended up rerouting 2 million packages, about 600,000 pounds or tons, I think it was, of freight during that next storm. And all of that cost that occurred, a problem for them the last time they had a snowstorm, was pretty much, negligible. Of course, there's some rerouting costs and things like that, but it is way, way better than the total loss of the 300 million. And I thought that was very, very fascinating how as they grew, they started to not only introduce new technology and new ideas, but they started to incorporate new data and started creating experiences from there. And what was really important about this session was it's not all LLMs. And a lot of times when we think about AI, it's all, is this ChatGPT? Is this something I do prompts to? AI is a very broad field, right? And so there are predictive models, there are co-pilots, agents, chatbots, there's deep learning, and then there's generative AI like ChatGPT and stuff like that. But how do you pick the right ones? And how do you measure ROI? And this is what stuck out to me is before you implement a piece of technology, make sure you're able to actually define how you would measure success. And the two very clear measures of success that I saw were identifying productivity gains internally. And a lot of times you'll hear, oh, employees saved 2 or 3 hours every day using AI. But eventually you should be able to, kind of create a more tangible report. And one of the examples I saw at FedEx was a lot of the questions being asked about how to ship something, where to ship it, and not being aware of all the nuances of like, clearance codes and customs rules and all that stuff that would impact how you ship something, what you can ship, how it has to be packaged. And the LLMs in that case were intelligent enough to know those things so that when somebody asked, I want to ship something from the US to the UK or whatever it might be, it goes ahead and takes care of all of that other stuff under the hood. The person is speaking to them as a human, telling them what they want to do with a specific product. And then the LLM is smart enough to digest that information, go out, and then make the right decisions and recommendations based on their needs. And this reduces any errors of manually checking if there's going to be a problem with shipping, manually checking if there's a customs issue, an embargo, or whatever it might be. And this was available across the globe. They're a global company. And so they had a consistent language across all of their different global brands and regions where this worked, no matter where they were. If they were shipping something from Singapore back to Canada or from the US to Bali or whatever it might be. The second factor that I saw was external ROI. What is the customer value? And this was where a different type of AI implementation, low code, no code solutions, where you could basically do a prompt, was a great way to allow their customers to create a dynamic storefront. I'm not a web developer. I don't know how to set up storefronts, but I have a product that I want to sell. I have a market that I want to reach, and I happen to use FedEx as a shipper. Well, one of the value adds that they now offer, thanks to AI, is the ability to make these AI prompts, get something dynamically spun up so that I can have a little marketplace or a better way of engaging with my end customers. And it doesn't just take advantage of AI to build a quick storefront and look pretty, but it has the right amount of data available from their proprietary systems that would also add value, helping them identify their target customers or demographics and things like that, but also without oversharing, right? Keeping the other proprietary data internally for compete purposes. And that's kind of where things started to really make sense, that if you just throw in a bot, if you just start making prompts, most of those things are just trained on the internet, and they are absolutely not good enough for enterprise applications. And you have to feed these things lots of data and up-to-date data. FedEx was, putting in information from 15 million packages being shipped today, and this was petabytes and petabytes of proprietary data. And the climate information is public data. And so what they're doing is they're combining these public-private sets, different private sets, different public sets to solve different problems. And that's where I think a lot of the AI engineering and architecture comes from. And then you will start to get ROI on these things. So at the end of the day, what problems do we solve? Well, people are worried about security threats. People are worried about lack of data harmonization, difficulty ensuring the quality. They have problems with budget constraints, and they have problems migrating data architectures, right? What we do as an organization is we provide data management, data security, data migration, and we provide the ability to synchronize data across your different data clouds, your Tableau, Power BI, things like that. We also optimize your storage in Salesforce, so you're not paying, a crazy bill just for storage, and you can spend it on something like Einstein or something else really cool. And this is part of a very, very big suite that we have. Please, take a look. We have all the badges, everything that you would think, from FedRAMP, GDPR, SOC 2, ISO, and a ton of rich features to basically give you confidence in your Salesforce data platform. But most importantly, what we do and what sets us apart from everyone else is we are a multi-cloud vendor. If you are using Salesforce and Microsoft, if you're using Google and Salesforce, if you're using AWS and Salesforce, we have solutions for you, so you don't have to worry about having 10 different vendors, a complicated supply chain, and a bunch of problems like that. We're located all around the world. We've been a partner, and we've been in this industry as an ISV since 2001. And we have a number of customers. We might already be providing services and support for one of your other cloud workloads, and maybe not for your Salesforce workload. And you can take advantage of things like bundling, simplified security reviews, and procurement in just a few seconds. So with that being said, check out our website or check us out right on the App Exchange. I'll leave this up here for just a second, and then we'll hop into the Q&A. Feel free to drop some comments in the chat, and let's have a little conversation. Let's see what's going on here.
Amazing. Thanks, Shyam. If you go back to the previous slide, we can leave the QR code up there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Federico, ROI is almost as rapid as Enterprise and Unlimited Editions will have Agentforce for free. That's right. The bar for entry is very, very easy, right? A lot of these capabilities are free. They're included in your SKU, but I love that Federico put a warning in there. It will cost $2 per conversation. Now, I do expect the prompt fees and things like that to go down over time, but this is another one of those considerations. Not only do you want to have a good pilot group, but you want to make sure that the use cases and the things that you're testing are worth that ROI. So don't just have someone who's never used AI and just go, hey, how do I make money? And hit enter into a chat. Or how does this thing work? Build a team, go through some basic training, and then make a wise choice on that investment. I really appreciate that comment, Federico. Looks like, do we have anything more coming in, Simon?
No, I don't think so. If you do have any other questions for Shyam, then do pop them in the comments now, as we'll move into the Q&A now.
Okay.
Fab. We did have a couple of questions come through.
Okay.
So the first one is, what was the biggest shock at Dreamforce that you didn't expect, or your biggest surprise?
So having been in this industry for so long on the SaaS side, I always assumed that people knew about data backup and the shared responsibility model, but the number of people who came by our booth and said, wait, Salesforce isn't automatically backing up our data, or we don't have an independent copy that we can save for compliance and audit purposes, was kind of shocking. I think in the Microsoft world, the percentage of people who don't think they need backup or they're fine was about 11% of those surveyed. I'll have to do a survey of the Salesforce community, but I was pretty shocked at how many people had that issue. And it looks like, Liam has a question as well. Dreamforce, which is not AI dominated. So I think AI, as a marketing thing has blown up. But it's funny because AI has technically always been here. So, there have been chatbots for more than a few years. It's not like ChatGPT came out and then there were customer support chatbots. There were workflows. There's been automation. There's been deep learning and predictive models. So I think AI will always be there now that it's so big. But I think this overemphasis on LLMs and things like that will go away. And what I'm really looking forward to is, after a year of like these agents and other stuff being out there, we're going to start talking about the practical applications. So people will talk less about it being powered by or tangential to AI, and it'll just kind of be under the hood, right? Kind of like a platform. So I'm hoping that's what it is. I think we're just all riding that AI buzz. It's good for SEO. It's good for noise. It's good for investors. But there is real value under the hood, under a lot of that fluff. And I think that's what we'll see next year is who did what with AI and how did they achieve success, and it'll become more concrete.
Great, thank you. Another one here is, what was your favorite booth or area in the campground?
Oh, so besides the margarita station, which I recommend, I think my favorite was, I think it was either PwC or Deloitte. They had a Aston Martin F1 like simulator there that everyone could drive. And as a big Formula One fan, I was kind of like constantly distracted by it and looking over. So that was probably the coolest one. And my favorite Salesforce booth was actually the MuleSoft one, shamelessly, because I went there. I didn't know a lot about MuleSoft. I got to talk to an SE, and I learned a ton about MuleSoft and potentially partnering and consuming it as a customer as well.
Amazing, thank you. Building the business case or justification for spending money on tools like this. This person thought that Salesforce native took care of all of that.
Yeah. So one of the things that people have to understand is, yes, there's a cost in adding on additional vendor technology like AvePoint, but it's always offsetting some kind of risk. So what is the risk of losing Salesforce records? What is the cost of a downtime after a bad metadata rollout? Is it, a problem with customer success? Is it a loss of data for weeks? Is it that sales and call center stop working for a week? And those things become very tangible costs. A lot of times it's kind of like insurance. You feel stupid if there is no flood. You feel bad if there is no hurricane, but when that hurricane comes, you're definitely going to wish you had that insurance. And I think what people don't realize is the nature of the data in Salesforce. It's a lot of structured data, but it's a lot of sensitive data. Phone numbers, PII, things that bad guys really want to get to. And so it makes it a much hotter target. And I think that's why you're investing in a form of insurance plan, but also invest in solutions that don't just give you insurance, but will do things like optimize your storage, reduce the cost of your storage. So overall, we are balancing out and you're getting a net benefit from investing in a solution like that. So definitely do your due diligence before you go to the App Exchange to buy a bunch of tools.
Amazing, thank you. Last call for questions before we wrap up. Whilst we wait, any last sort of thoughts, Shyam?
So I told everybody at the beginning of Dreamforce to make sure you get your badges early. And I will just remind everybody, next year, you should definitely do it. Tuesday was a madhouse. If you can arrive early, arrive early. As far as food is concerned, it's going to be in San Francisco again. I highly recommend leaving the conference center, going out to get some food, so that you can get some air, change of scenery. And Salesforce, I don't know if they'll do it again next year, but they had a really crazy like cafeteria setup where you can go and get prefixed food. And I actually talked to a lot of people who didn't know it existed throughout the entire week. So those are some things just to kind of keep you going. And the last thing I'll say is, the parties and everything are fun and exciting, but make sure if you're a sponsor, you pace yourself, because it can feel like a long week and wear really good shoes.
I love that. All of the priorities there, especially food.
Yes.
But thank you so much, Shyam. It was really lovely to revisit some of those highlights from Dreamforce, and also to learn from your own experience being out there for the first time. Thank you, everyone in the audience as well, for tuning in. But this is the end. So I hope you've taken something valuable from this, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Simon.
Bye.